We live in a country where millions complain about the future of the United States, yet hardly any organize, get involved, or even vote. And the reason is, of course, because many have begun to stop caring, to grow complacent in this political system. And for that very reason, the American Republic will not collapse nor fall because of any foreign adversaries or open enemies. The American Republic will, if nothing has changed, fall because the American people do not care. My name is Ian Wolstenholme. I am a conservative, a traditionalist, and a Catholic at heart. I am a Cuban-American, to the son of a legal Cuban immigrant who came to the United States of America seeking a better life and freedom from a communist dictatorship. Now, my whole life, I've been interested in politics. I've been interested in government. I've been interested in how the world works. And I've always wanted to get myself involved, always make sure that my vote mattered, my voice was heard. But I also realized that there were so many millions of people throughout this country and in my community that didn't get themselves involved and didn't vote and didn't even get their voice heard. Because of that, I decided to start this very show, this very podcast, to hopefully grow civic engagement and ensure that the basic concept of getting yourself involved in the government and in politics is enshrined in as many people as possible. You see, I don't want to push any sort of agenda. I don't want to push a left or right, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat agenda. I want to not just tell people what to think. I want to encourage people to learn how to think and to actually navigate the political process that is instated in our government. Because if you don't involve yourself politically, or you don't involve yourself civically with the problems that are, and you don't take responsibility, someone else who does care will steal your voice, will steal your vote. Even if you don't realize it, it can be coming from just under your nose. Because at the end of the day, if you don't make your voice heard, it's as if you don't have a voice, as if you don't even have an opinion. And so many people today don't care about government, they don't care about what happens, they don't care about politics. And when that happens, right, you think, oh, I don't care, I'm not going to get myself involved. At the end of the day, if you don't choose to get involved, the people that do will end up controlling you. Because when you have that sense of apathy, that sense of not caring, of disregarding the political system, those who do care will fill in the vacuum that you leave and take the power that you're leaving on the table. So at the end of the day, those in power, even if they say, they love you, they want to fight for you, they want to work for you, at the end of the day, they're gaining so much power from all these things. They're gaining immense influence, right? These politicians love when you yourself don't get involved, when you don't make your voice heard, right? Because when you don't make your voice heard, they're able to have so many more freedoms in the powers that they have. They're able to spend your money easier. They're able to restrict your freedoms easier. They're even able to restrict information that you're consuming easier, right? And then therein lies the central problem. The central question is, why care so much about politics? Because at the end of the day, it seems like something that only someone wearing a suit up in Capitol Hill or in whatever government center is going to really care about. But at the end of the day, politics influences your entire life. It influences the taxes. It influences your education. It influences the food you eat, where you live, and at the end of the day, it influences your safety. Because all of these decisions made by these politicians and those in power, even if they seem ridiculous, even if they seem far-fetched, they are directly influencing your entire life. Any bad bill, any good law, bad law, will eventually come and affect you, even if you don't think it will. Let's say there's a bill on corporations and on big business. You might think it doesn't affect you. In 10 years, those big businesses might be drilling oil right next to your house. They might be mining minerals. They might be doing whatever. So at the end of the day, every single act of legislation does, in some way or another, influence you, right? And when you grow uneducated, when you don't care, that allows the politicians to then take that disregard and just go a mile with it, right? Because if you don't understand the laws getting passed, if you don't understand the bills getting passed, if you don't care about any of that stuff, what's going to happen is those bills are going to pass anyways, right? The only difference is now you won't have a say in their substance and what they do and their effect and how they influence your life, right? Because at the end of the day, if you ignore those bad bills, if you just, cover your ears, cover your mouth, cover your eyes, if you just disregard them completely, that's the same thing as supporting those bad bills and supporting those phony actors who will just take advantage of not caring people and push their own personal agendas. Because at the end of the day, these people love an uninformed populace because an uninformed populace is extremely easy to control, right? You don't need to convince them. You don't need to debate them. You don't need to give these grand speeches because at the end of the day, if you just let them do whatever and let them have their little disregard, they'll let you do whatever you want. Which is why growing educated, growing involved, having that civic engagement is one of the most important things a person can do as an American and as a basic human being in a society. Now, there also in lies a problem with people getting involved in politics and getting involved in government and in these societal problems because what usually ends up occurring is people will get involved and then very quickly go into the pitfalls that are within the party system of the United States. Now, I'm not to say that party systems are a bad thing. I'm not even to say that our two-party system is the most evil thing possible. It's not inherently bad. What comes from it is. Because when you have people that will blindly follow the Republican Party, blindly follow the Democrat Party, the Libertarian Party, whatever party, when you have those people that blindly follow those parties, you have people that think they're participating in politics, think they're participating in the legislative process. But at the end of the day, they're just having this phony sort of culture war between two different groups that doesn't truly affect what comes out of the legislature and what comes out of executive orders and what comes out of ordinances and any form of lawmaking. Because when you have a fight of left versus right, they fight for some issues. They fight social issues. They have economical issues, right? But a lot of the bigger problems aren't solved through fighting between party and party. Because people that have these party fights, these party affiliations, it has a feeling of participation, a feeling of, oh, I'm involved in politics, I'm involved in government, I have a say, my voice is being heard. But when you have that feeling of participation in those party systems, that's not true participation. Because those people that are participating with heavy quotations are simply fighting other people who think that they're participating as well. And they're not actually creating substantive change and substantive noise, right? For example, right, if you have someone online that's far right versus someone online who's far left, and they're just bickering at each other online, that's not getting anything done. That's not really solving anything. And neither will change their mind. Neither will, most likely, deviate from their already had belief sets. So it's almost like a unneeded thing to do, to have these culture wars and these participating in governments with heavy quotations with not true participation, right? And then that breeds another thing, which is people who say, oh, well, that's bickering, that's whatever, but I actually vote. I get I get out there, I get out to the polls, and I write the person on the ballot, I check a little box, and I vote for that person. A lot of the times, because of these right and left divisions, these people are voting solely based off of if it says Republican or if it says Democrat next to someone's name. And they think, oh, I've been heard, my voice has been let out. And they had done zero research on that candidate. They've done zero research on the legislation they want to pass. And they've done zero research on what they're going to do once they get in office. And the only thing that they cared about was if it said Republican or Democrat next to their name. Because a major problem with the party system that we have and with the system of government that we have now is that people have that illusion of participation, the illusion that, yes, I'm participating in the political system, and they're really just following orders, blindly following, right? And I'm not to say that parties are bad or even the two-party system is bad. The problem comes when people are blindly following political parties. I know a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm a Republican or oh, I'm a Democrat, and they'll never vote for the other party. Now, that might be because of the causes they support, the bills they whatever, but a lot of the time it comes down to, they're a Democrat, I can never vote for them, or they're a Republican, I never vote for them. And they never really do the research needed to make those decisions. Now, I'm not to say that someone has to vote both sides and they have to do, Democrat, Republican. They can vote fully Republican, fully Democrat, fully independent even, or any other party. The problem comes when you blindly see Republican or Democrat and vote for that person and do absolutely zero research on what that person will vote for and who that person is. And that actually causes a lot of problems in Congress. You see, when bills get passed, right, by legislators, and people are surprised. They say, how could they pass a bill like this? Or how could they vote against such a bill? And it's like, well, that was in their campaign. You just didn't pay attention. You didn't listen. Right? And then that's where a lot of political strife comes, where they say, oh, this person's a fake Republican or fake Democrat because they, I didn't do my research on who they were. Right? It's their fault because I'm uneducated. That's a common belief with so many people around the political spectrum on every side. Now, beyond those who involve themselves, right or left, becomes a wider societal problem with modern and society as a whole in all of history. And it's a little cringy to say, but it was a very famous Roman, I guess, saying or Roman practice that basically, if you provide your citizens with bread and circuses, they won't revolt. That more so means that if you provide citizens and people of a society with food, water, shelter, sustainability, and entertainment, they're not going to question the government. They're not going to revolt. They're not going to push back against what the government does. So beyond the culture wars of right and left, you then just have this bread and circuses charade that is going on in almost every single person throughout the country. And today, that's very much more manifested in entertainment and the circuses portion of that, and an entertainment swap, right? Because you have people today that will focus more so on things that will not affect their personal lives and disregard things that will. And what I mean to say by that is people will put all of their time, all of their attention, all of their focus into, say, sports, into gambling, into celebrities, into pop culture. And they'll completely disregard government, politics, bills, legislation. And I know it sounds a little lame to say, like, you shouldn't care about the football game. You should care about the bill that's being passed in Congress, right? No, I'm not going to watch Sunday Night Football. I'm going to research the bills that my congressman is passing. And I'm not to say that, having a deep closeness with sports is a bad thing. What I am to say is that when you purely devote your attention to entertainment, or you devote, an extreme amount of your attention to entertainment and disregard things that will affect your life, that's where we have the problem, right? Because people in modern society, you see, it's everywhere, right? You could talk for hours and hours about, football players, about baseball players, right? About what celebrities are saying online, about pop culture, about the new music, about whatever, and they can't hold more than a minute conversation about things that will affect their lives, about the bills that will go into place that will, increase their taxes exponentially, or that will bring more crime to their neighborhoods, or will impact their children's education. So instead of talking about their children's education, people are talking about the touchdown that was made or the home run that was scored. And that's causing a greater decay. Because if people will put all of their attention into sports, into entertainment, into things that don't really affect their lives, they're allowing the people in power to take advantage of that disregard, that carelessness for things that matter. And they're allowing those people in power to do their will, to pass laws that no one wants, to pass bills that no one would really care for if they actually cared. And that's the problem. And the government knows this, and people in power know this, and that's why no one's truly going to speak out against this. Because if I'm in power, let's say I'm in Congress, right? Or let's say I'm the president. If I'm the president and everyone's way too engrossed in, entertainment and things that don't matter, am I really going to say, no, you guys should get off of the entertainment slop and you guys should start paying attention to everything that I do? And you should be reading all my executive orders and you should be reading all my bills. If I were a president, I would never say that. Or at least the presidents that we have in power, right? Because if a president is to say, no, don't care about all that stuff. You should care about, you should deep dive into what I'm doing. Then all of their corruption, their deceit, their lies, their manipulation of the people is going to come to light. So that's why all the people in power, they love all of this slop that we're engaging in, this carelessness that we're promoting. Because it allows them to have free reign over the country, free reign over the bills, free reign over the laws that pass. And we end up giving away our own control of the legislative process. We give away our own voices to people for free. Now, the government doesn't need to hide itself. It doesn't need to mask itself. It doesn't need to hide its actions, what it does, the bills it passes. It doesn't need to sneak things in because the majority of people simply don't care about what it does, simply don't care about what it passes, what ordinances it makes, what decisions are enforced, right? Because most people allow themselves to grow voiceless, to grow without a voice. Because with all this media, with all the slop, with all the caring about all that stuff, they don't really care about what really matters. And because of that, we, for the most part, do not need to be censored or controlled. Because we censor ourselves and we control ourselves willingly and honestly, joyfully. With all this entertainment that we keep ourselves busy with all of this slop that we prioritize over what matters, we allow ourselves to grow complacent in a system that promotes those in power staying in power and those in power using their power to further their own personal gain. So at the end of the day, people are losing their voices, screaming at screens that don't listen to them, that don't care about them. And they're allowing their voices to be wasted on these slop entertainments instead of using their voices in things that matter, in things that affect their lives, in things that will impact their future. And many of these people willingly choose to avoid politics and to avoid these people in power. And that's exactly what they want. They want a populace who will just allow themselves to be controlled, censor themselves, and permit the powers that be to do whatever they want as long as they have their slop, the entertainment, right? And the thing is that to avoid politics is to avoid that power. And power does not avoid you. Because politics at the end of the day, is not truly about the left or the right, conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat, or any other party. Politics is about whether or not you are going to shape and build the future, or you are going to allow someone else to build and shape that future without you and your voice in mind. You see, at the end of the day, this country is becoming passive, ignorant, numb to the problems. And we mask those problems with entertainment, pop culture, with things that, like I've said before, don't really matter. And when we do that, we are allowing our nation to become more crippled, more destroyed. And as I said before, the same people who don't do anything about these problems are the same ones that are complaining about them in the first place. They're the same people who get online and they say how horrible this thing was. Or they get out in the village square and they say, oh, this person's horrible, this group is horrible. And at the end of the day, they don't really do anything. They allow themselves to be drained out by all the slop, while the people in power make the real choices. And they pretend democracy. They pretend to participate. They pretend to shape this country. And they get out and they say, I'm a loving patriot of this country. And at the end of the day, like I've said so many times before, they're really not doing anything. And they're screaming out, they're voicing all their beliefs and their political thought, and no one is truly listening, and especially those in power. And that is the problem with our modern political system and our modern society. Because people go about their days, they go about their years, and they think they are involved. They think they're participating. And it's really like play democracy. It's like when you give a kid a play phone and they pretend to call someone, and they pretend to call 911, or they pretend to call the president, or they pretend to call whoever. All right, they press the little buttons and they say, oh, hey, what up? At the end of the day, calling nobody. And it's the same for these people who they pretend to engage themselves. They pretend to, I have a voice. And they're really speaking to no one. And so many people, they think, I'm involved. I do something. I am in politics. And for the majority of these people, they're not. And that comes down to free thinking, comes down to education, it comes down to the individual. Because not only is it that, they're not really doing anything, but that they're blindly following the ones in power, the ones that are manipulating them, the ones that are taking advantage of them not caring. And they're just blindly following them and saying, well, they got my best interest in mind. I'll trust them up there. I'll do whatever I want down here, and they'll do whatever. And even though it has full effect on my life, I'm not going to care. That's what the majority of people say, and that's what the majority of people do. And they live every day of their life truly unaware how little impact they have. Not because they don't have the right or the freedom, but because of their own choice. And that really comes to the reason that I'm doing this show. To promote people to think better, to educate themselves, and to engage in a way that is tangible, that is real, that has true, verifiable impact. So I hope over the coming weeks, months, even years that I do this, and over my lifetime, I can promote more people, not necessarily to think one way or another, but to think in general. To start thinking and stop following. So my challenge with this show and to all those listening is to stop waiting for that moment, to stop waiting for permission to actually get engaged. Don't wait till you're older. Don't wait till you have more money. Don't wait till you're actually set up. Because as you're waiting to get involved, people already are. And those people that already are going to take advantage of your current silence and make it so that when you finally choose to gain a voice, it'll be too late. And you'll become very unable to do so. Because countries, nations, groups of people are not saved by spectators. We're not saved by people who wait. We're saved by people that do, that act, that fight. So if you believe that this country is worth fighting for, if you believe that your own beliefs are worth fighting for, your own opinions, who you are as a person is worth fighting for, why wait? Why wait however many years, this undefined amount of time for an act? Why not act now? And even if it's difficult, what do you have to lose? This inaction will cause you to lose your voice. And without a voice, how individual really are you? How much of a person can you claim to be if you can't even voice your own opinions? Is that not why we founded this republic, these United States? To allow every single person to become involved, to have a voice that wasn't had, hundreds of years ago. That with the systems of bread and circuses, with the systems of just not caring about government, we've given ourselves so many rights as Americans, and yet we've chosen to continue the censorship and the control that has been had for hundreds, thousands of years. Why? And the real answer, there's no real answer to that. There is no why. There just is the action, and people do it, and people choose not to care. The only real why could be, it's easy. It's easy to let someone else do everything, someone else to take all the shots. The problem is that when you let someone else take all the shots, you have really no right to complain about what they do. Because if you didn't raise your voice when they were campaigning, when they were doing things, when they were getting into office, then you have no justification to then complain once they're doing all the things they said they would do and claim ignorance of the past, of what they said. You can't complain about a politician that you elected who said they were going to do exactly what they're doing, right? You're complaining about actions they promised they do. You can't complain about that simply because, I wasn't paying attention when they were saying that. I just voted for them because they're of my party, or I voted for them because they look nice, or I voted for them because I like their speeches, and I like how they sound. I don't like, because, and that's another thing so common in this country. People just let things happen and then complain retroactively. Because hindsight's 2020, and they'll say, "Oh, well, this person's horrible, this person's whatever." Then why did you vote for them? Why did you give them your vote? Why did you give them that platform, that sense of power? Because they didn't care. And you don't have to not care. You don't have to disregard the system. You really should be a part of that system. It should be a duty to become one with the civic process, the process of government. Because at the end of the day, it is our lives. Politics is our lives. Everything that's debated in every city hall, county government, state house, and even in Congress and the Oval Office, that all will come down to affect you. The real question is, do you want to affect it? Now, I know I've been a very Debbie Downer on all these topics, and I've talked so negatively about the people of America, honestly, about how little we care, how much we disregard our system, how even when we think we're participating, we're just doing play government. But there is a silver lining, and the fact is, everything that I've said is reversible. Every malaction done, or really inaction done, can be reversed and can be changed. And that change starts with every single person. It starts with every individual, every community, city, state, country, and people throughout the world. Because it's as simple as wanting to be involved truly and pushing yourself to get past that ease of not caring. that ease of letting someone else do it, someone else make all the shots, and I'll just complain once they're done. It's easy to do that. And it's time and time again, people will say, this person's horrible, I hate this, whatever. And then the next person comes along and they do the exact same thing. And they complain the exact same way. Because it's easy. What's difficult is to stand up, make yourself involved, and make your voice heard. And the people in power know this is difficult. And they thrive off of it. That's why they don't promote people to go and truly challenge the people in power. And truly promote people to become genuinely educated. Because the most worrisome thing for someone who wants to maintain power and doesn't have a legitimate cause or doesn't have legitimacy in that power, the most dangerous thing to that person is an educated populace. Because an educated populace will call them out. An educated populace will fight against them. An educated populace will remove them if they don't fight for the beliefs that they believe in. And yet, we know these facts. We've seen the history. And the history book on the shelf, it always repeats. Because those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And even those who learn from history are doomed to repeat it unless they put in the conscious effort to prevent the past from happening again. And as an American people, we've grown complacent in our system, we've grown careless, and we've grown in our disregard. And for that reason, we are allowing the history of censorship, control, and decay to manifest in our country. It doesn't have to be that way. And that change starts with every single person, every individual, to fight to make that difficult change in your life, to become involved, to become knowledgeable, educated, and just one with the political system. Now, I'm not the only negative one on all these topics. There are people that say America is dying. They say the damage is done morally, culturally, politically, everywhere you look. And if you look at the headlines as well, you see the corruption, you see the division, the decay. I mean, it's easy to believe that this nation is dying and this nation is really dead. But nations aren't buildings, nations aren't flags, nations aren't even governments. Nations are people. Nations are souls. And I refuse to believe that American spirit that lives in every single soul is gone. I refuse to believe that that fire that our forefathers carried with them, that stormed the beaches of Normandy, that marched for their rights, that prayed in darkness, built families out of nothing, nations from ashes, is just gone. It's just like that, extinguished. Because the establishments that we have may be dying, but the spirit is not. Now, it may be buried, it may be neglected, it may be ignored, but it's still alive within every single one of us. And I know you felt it before in moments where you wanted to be bigger than school, bigger than work, bigger than status, bigger than even your own name. And that feeling isn't some nostalgia from a faraway past or fantasies of an impossible future. That's the American spirit that pushes ordinary people like you and like me to shape history indefinitely. So if the country and the nation feels broken, that's because so many Americans have allowed their American spirit to dwindle down, that fire to, disperse, to extinguish itself. You see, America isn't dead. America's waiting for each and every one of us to rekindle our spirits, reignite our flames, and pick up that torch that has been carried by our forefathers and serve as a guiding beacon for the future of the United States of America and the future of our people. And it's that choice that each and every one of us has to make. And it is a question that history from far on in the ages will judge us by. And it said, will we rise to the occasion and make that difficult choice in each and every one of us and build back our country? Now, I just want to thank you so much for watching the first episode of the New American Republic Forum show. It's hopefully going to promote so many more people to become engaged in the civic process, learn to actually think independently, and engage in all of the government and politics and decisions that affect every one of our lives. So I thank you so much for watching. I hope you watch our next episode. Hope you follow us on everything that you can, all the platforms. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.